Mick Jagger once said something that most rock legends would never admit out loud, that almost everything he learned about performing he stole from someone else, not borrowed, not was inspired by. Flat out watched, absorbed, and took home. And the 5 people he learned from? They didn't just shape the Rolling Stones. They shaped the entire idea of what a rock star is supposed to be. Here's the thing about watching greatness up close. When you're young and hungry and playing tiny clubs, you're not thinking about legacy or cultural importance. You're thinking, how does he do that? Jagger was doing exactly that. Studying performers the way a young painter studies the masters, except the canvas was a sweaty stage, and the lessons came without any instruction manual. Chuck Berry was the first lesson. People remember Chuck for that unmistakable guitar sound, but Jagger always insisted the real genius was in the words. Chuck could write about cars, girls, and getting into trouble, and make it sound effortless, funny, sharp, and completely alive. Everything about him felt like it belonged together. The guitar, the voice, the movement, the attitude. You couldn't isolate one ingredient and call it the secret. The whole thing was the secret. And yes, the Rolling Stones copied him. So did the Beatles. So did basically every guitar band in Britain. Nobody was pretending otherwise. Then there was Muddy Waters. And this one was personal. The band's very name came from a Muddy Waters song. That's how deep the obsession ran. Jagger and Keith Richards would sit in a room playing Muddy's Chicago blues records over and over. 2 English boys trying to understand music that came from a world completely foreign to them. What struck Jagger most wasn't technique, it was authority. Muddy barely had to move. He'd just stand there and the entire room would shift. You can learn guitar licks. You cannot learn that. Elvis represented something different altogether. Jagger was clear that it wasn't the later Elvis, the Las Vegas years, that mattered. It was the early records, the ones that sounded genuinely dangerous in 1950s England. Elvis proved that a singer's image, movement, and sexuality were just as much a part of the performance as the music itself. After Elvis, every young performer had to reckon with that reality, whether they liked it or not. James Brown was the masterclass in stagecraft. Jagger saw him perform multiple nights in a row just to figure out how it worked. The movement was obviously spectacular, but what he was really studying was timing, knowing exactly when to give an audience what they wanted and when to hold it back. Underneath all that explosive energy was iron discipline. The band watched James for cues constantly. Chaos was the illusion. Control was everything. And then Little Richard, who Jagger puts at number 1. Touring with Richard as a young band, Jagger saw something he genuinely didn't know was possible. A performer who made every single person in the room feel like they were in the show, not just watching it. The voice was almost unfair. The piano, the costumes, the humor, all of it. But it was that electricity between Richard and his audience that never left Jagger's mind. Decades later, standing in front of stadium crowds, that's still the lesson he was applying. Rock and roll, it turns out, is one long chain of people watching each other and quietly thinking, I'll have a bit of that. If you found this as fascinating as we did, hit like and subscribe. There's plenty more where this came from.